Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another comic book review video, where I say words and you, the people of the universe, listen. It is I, your fantastical Bostonian, your steward of Gundor, your genius billionaire playboy, basic YouTuber philanthropist, SuperCliff. And please, would you kindly hit that like and subscribe button, for every little bit helps in this YouTube world. And today, folks, we will be covering another huge, a never-before-seen comic book event, which will stamp its mark for eons to come. That being King in Black issue number 1, written by Marvel's Golden Boy, Donny Cates, and drawn by Ryanstegman. And much like Bendis is coming, Knull has followed suit, and now Knull's death march has come. God damn it. Yo, can Marvel and DC marketing teams at least try to come up with a better hook? I digress. And our issue begins with Eddie Brock, who's standing above a building rooftop, waiting patiently for the coming storm. The Venom symbiote then senses an incoming presence, that being the Lord of the Abyss, the god of the symbiotes, the inevitable storm. Knull has arrived. It's with that where Eddie immediately suits up and dials the group chat on his phone, giving the signal to all the Marvel heroes across all corners of the Marvel Universe to assemble. Venom then swings over to where Dylan and his son is currently sleeping, and it's here where we get some internal monologue from Eddie, saying that yes, Venom is insanely terrified of Knull, but what makes Knull even more terrifying is the fact that Dylan is but a young boy. Therefore, a kid his age shouldn't have to be affiliated with such living nightmares like Knull, or heck, even Eddie of that matter. Dylan then begins to wake up as he starts to sense Knull's presence, acknowledging that the villainous god is here. Battle stations, everyone, because over at Avengers Mountain, Captain America orders his fellow Avengers to suit up in order to organize the ground teams with the evacuations, while simultaneously, Iron Man begins to remotely rig the derelict Kree and Skrull warships left behind from the Empire event as space mines against the incoming symbiote invasion force. And oh my Lanta, it's a freaking fleet of symbiote dragons. Oh man, Rick! That's my Morty impression. Don't sue me. And of course, this puts a smile across Tony Stark's face as he ignites the bombs, burning hundreds of dragons to that of a mere gooey death. However, as Eddie feels the loss of the symbiote casualties, both Eddie and Venom sense that Tony's bombs had barely scratched the surface against Knull's forces. Meanwhile, Captain America and his team charge forth to battle against the invaders. Meanwhile, Eddie leads Dylan down into a bunker, where Dylan can stay until the fighting above is finished. Dylan tells Eddie that he can help and use his powers to turn Knull's army against him, but Eddie refuses because a father's love does not include placing your son to combat a space god, though I'm sure many fathers within the Marvel Universe would have done so already. I digress. Once Eddie secures Dylan, he radios over to Captain America and tells him to ready up Plan B. Over in Manhattan, symbiote dragons are everywhere, and it's rain and goo. Within the streets of New York, we witness Captain America and others, such as Lightning and Doctor Strange, helping out with the evacuation of the city's population. And over in Washington Square Park, we see Professor X telepathically communicating with the X-Men, whom are also lending their assistance. Now, unfortunately, Thor isn't present. Gee, I wonder why. Cough, cough, Donald Blake. However, Professor X suggests that they instead call upon a thunder goddess, that being, of course, Storm, who concentrates her lightning powers to combat against the horde of dragons. Venom then makes his way through the city sewers towards the ruins section where the living abyss spire from Absolute Carnage is located. From there, Eddie initiates the third phase to his battle plan as he sits upon the spire and mentally connects to it, hoping to seize control over Knull's dragons. But unfortunately, as the heroes are getting overrun, Eddie, through the spire, senses that Knull has not only brought forth an army of symbiote dragons, but that the King in Black has also brought a trio of symbiote-possessed Celestials. One of the Celestials' chests opens up, and from there, Knull emerges whilst armed with a Necrosword. After making his badass entrance, Knull announces to the heroes that he's looking for a human whose name is Brock, and that he's willing to make their deaths quick and painless if they provide and surrender. And because those options suck, Captain America orders the heroes to fall back. But to much surprise, Cap's got one hell of an ace up his sleeve, as the Sentry pops down from orbit and proceeds to fuck shit up by Falcon punching one of the possessed Celestials, taking it out like a Mumakil. And that was a Return of the King reference. Anyways, but in a horrid instant, Knull sprouts wings and grabs Sentry by the throat, soaring upward back into orbit. And with Knull being able to sense that the Sentry was the one who originally killed Carnage, our Dark God is here to return the favor by tearing the Sentry in half and absorbing the Void's essence within Sentry. And now Knull has everyone's attention. For Knull ain't no mere basic baddie, for Knull is the King in Black. Following the Sentry's death, Knull then commands a flood of symbiote goo and manages to drown the heroes with it, but he doesn't stop there, for Knull then proceeds to cover the entire Earth with symbiote goo, basically trapping the people of Earth without any light whatsoever. And to put some final icing on top of the cake, Knull then swallows Storm whole, using the goo, taking her out of the fight as well. Left without options, Venom decides to give himself up to his maker as he disconnects himself from the Spire. Venom uses his symbiote powers to signal Knull to his location, which Knull finds with ease, using his colossus-sized gooey hand to pick up Venom from his location, bringing Eddie and the symbiote to a goo-covered Empire State Building in order to meet face-to-face with Knull. Venom begs Knull to just take him and to spare Earth. However, it's here where Knull remembers Eddie from the first arc, way back where Eddie defeated the Grendel symbiote, which Knull used to communicate through while still being trapped within Clintar. And it appears here that there's been some form of miscommunication on Knull's part, for he should have been more specific as to which Brock he wanted. And as Eddie begins to freak out, knowing that his son is the one Knull wants, Knull then absorbs Eddie's symbiote and immediately discards Eddie, throwing him off the Empire State Building towards his death. To be continued. Kinginblack issue number 1 was a really fun, explosive issue that didn't waste any time in setting up the stakes for our beloved characters. Almost immediately, the heroes are screwed, and though they've had all this time to plan since the conclusion of Venom Island back in April-ish, I believe, where we saw Eddie finally tell the Avengers that an evil space deity was en route to Earth, it's still to no avail, because there wouldn't be an event if that were the case. It's like Knull arrives and is defeated in issue 1. Man, if that happened, I would have just laughed, then blamed 2020, and then proceed to cry. I digress. Now, if you haven't been reading Donny Cates Venom, then I suggest that you do. However, if this is your first issue featuring Knull, then this comic does its job by showcasing to the reader that Knull is a fucking badass, as it's demonstrated. For Marvel's Superman, aka the Sentry, gets ripped in half by the symbiote god, similar to how the Sentry ripped apart Cletus Cassidy, aka Carnage, all those years ago during the Siege storyline. Karma! In case you were wondering, yes, killing the Sentry is really, really hard to do, times 3,000. So yeah, folks, Knull is the real deal. Ryanstegman's art is also a lovely gem as well. It's cool because although Stegman's art is dark, it's never disgustingly dark. A lot of the characters are still drawn with light effect. I thought it was something cool that I noticed, and hence as to why people probably dig Stegman's art forever and ever. The more you know. Now, what I will say is by no means a criticism to this book at all, because overall, this first issue does deliver in the way people were highly, anticipating that it would be, including myself. But more so as a criticism to the comic book industry, mainly Marvel and DC, and the way that they're handling events. Like, holy Christ, there are so many events. Like, why is this the case? Granted, yes, events bring up sales, and yes, events allow writers to change status quos, which in turn affect their company's universes, but whenever a 2-month event ends, only to have another begin a couple weeks after, it makes the overarching danger of said event very numb and very easy to predict. Like, whatever happened to the events like Civil War, where the event didn't result in the Earth potentially getting conquered and or destroyed? I don't know, I just thought it was important to point that out, because it's pretty relevant if you've been paying attention. But yeah, Kinginblack is a really good first issue, and I can't wait for more to follow. Kinginblack, issue number 1, gets a 9 out of 10. Giggity goo.